Hey guys.
Hey everybody.
There.
How's it going this week?
It's going pretty
Good,
good.
good.
Going good.
Yeah,
Beautiful
just saw you
weather.
guys a few days ago. It's
Awesome.
raining where I'm at, so it's been kind of a stay indoors, have the fireplace on kind of day.
Oh,
That's
that's
not
nice.
bad.
Yeah, that's been nice. I don't know, is it cool enough where you two are to have fireplace yet?
I mean,
Maybe in the evening. We've had a couple of really cool evenings, like in the upper 30s here, but I have not had a fire yet.
Not
But I've got
really.
it ready. I've got wood in my fireplace, and I've got one of those starter logs in there, and so I'm ready. But I just haven't had one yet.
Yeah, we have a gas fireplace, so it's just easy to flip a switch. So
Oh, that's cool.
I tend to use it. Yeah, I tend to use it a little more, but I mean, it hasn't even been that cold in the evening here. It's still in the 40s at night. So, but I just really enjoy the fireplace. It's a cool thing. Yeah.
I wish I could use mine actually. We have a real one and we've never used it. We've lived here for like 23 years and we've never used it. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know why. We just
haven't. So this evening I find
let's see, my son was like 8 when I bought this place, and one of the 2 conditions for my house had to be a big tree in the front yard and a fireplace. And so we've burned that fireplace every year, and I just love it. I mean, that's one of the redeeming qualities, I think, of fall, because you realize that everything's winding down and you're getting ready for winter, and so at least
I would love it. I mean, I didn't grow up with a fireplace, so I don't really know much about it. And my husband keeps, he would always say, well, we can't use it. I think the flue is broken, but I'm not positive. But he kind of suspected that too, because like there's a piece broken off. I don't know. Anyway, I told him, I said, we'll get somebody to come and clean it, but then it just never has been a priority, so, and I'm just not used to having one, so I'm not missing anything.
Well, my daughter has a good tip about getting a cheaper cleaning for your fireplace is call them in the summer, because business is slow for the and stuff. And so that's what she did. And I meant to do it this past summer to get mine cleaned, but I didn't. So now I'm going to have to, I think it's going to be okay because I had it cleaned last year, but you still want to do that just to make sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, Jeannie.
Hey, how are you?
Twins.
Yeah. So tonight I finally, it's taken forever, my interview with Dr. Chafee. We've been talking. Are
you interviewing him or is he interviewing you?
He's interviewing me.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we talked about it initially when he was hanging out at the Airbnb with us at Texas at the Hack Your Health conference, and I've scheduled with him 3 times, but the first 2 times he's like, I'm so sorry, I got to reschedule. So I emailed him last night and I said, just want to make sure it's really happening this time. And he said, yes. So
well, that's cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's going to be recorded. So I have no idea when it's actually going to be on his channel, but
I'm definitely watching.
Me too.
Yeah, it's not like I haven't told my stories, enough times, but I just feel like if I have an opportunity to share about MCAS, then I want to do it. I know there's more people now that are talking about MCAS, but it's like every time I have an opportunity to share my story, there's always someone in the comments that says, I didn't know. I think I know now what's going on with me. And so I feel like anyone who's got MCAS should be sharing, because there's just so many more people that have it and don't realize it. And hearing your story can help someone go, oh, wait a minute, this might be what I have.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Hope it goes well.
I think it
will. All right, guys, we are doing chapter 9, which is the last chapter of this book before she goes into like some other stuff that's not really as readable as much as like stuff you can apply to your life. So
yeah, it's more like self-assessments, checklists, yeah, that sort of thing. So, but I did read the first couple pages and the next section, just I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
And she does talk a little bit about some stuff that is, kind of interesting, but I don't think it's anything new that we would not already be familiar with. So it's just kind of like the hierarchy of competence that was kind of interesting. So, but yeah, anyone who has the book can read through that. But this chapter was interesting.
Okay, you say that in a way. So what do you mean by
elaborate?
that? Yeah.
What'd you
I
say,
don't think it was bad. I don't think it was bad. I think it was a good chapter. I was just a little like, some of her stories were a little bit interesting to me because I don't know, maybe it just seemed a little hippie. The dancing in the moonlight and, on the mountain and, which was kind of cool, but it was just kind of interesting.
I fantasize about doing that, but it's not really practical. No, see, I really love nature and stuff, and I did live on a farm for a long time, and now I'm in a subdivision, and there is a patch of woods next to me, so I'm blessed with that. But so I do.
I think it's great. I just have so much trouble picturing her doing that.
Yeah. But I would so do it. Like if I could go to Mont Eagle, if I lived there, overlooking one of those valleys or something, you better believe it. I'd be out there meditating every morning. I mean,
oh yeah, there's something amazing about being out in nature, and especially when you're out kind of by yourself. And I remember when I was a teenager, I volunteered at a camp in the summertime for handicap, and it was not just kids, it was adults too, but people with disabilities. And I was a camp counselor, and every time we had our breaks, our free time, there was this place I'd go. I'd hike up this kind of halfway up this mountain, and there was this big log by a creek bed. And it was, sun was just warm and beautiful, and it was peaceful, and birds and butterflies. And that was my, that was just my alone time. And it was so restorative after all the hustle and bustle of camp. And so, no, I absolutely love being out in nature, but it was just kind of funny for me to read that and picture her.
True. Yeah.
See, I picture her as like a very intelligent, yet very she's kind of a dreamer at the same time, like she's kind of a romantic type. And anybody who could quit a job like she quit because they had a dream of doing something to actually help people, that shows you that she's pretty balanced in her left and right brain.
That's true. It's probably
a visionary, I think. And I think for her, it's more important to be doing the right thing. And a lot of people have the theory, especially in the personal development sphere, that if you're doing something that you love and serving people well, that you will be well rewarded. And so that comes out in what you do. And if you're truly helping people, and I think that she realized she did realize what she was doing was not helping. And so now she's in her element where she can serve best,
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
And I think she probably realized that it's not super rewarding to do, those kind of surgeries on people who you're thinking in your mind as soon as you see them, it's like, okay, it's just, this is going to happen again here in a few months.
Right.
That has to be just emotionally exhausting when you really sit and think about it,
Yeah. Well, I think that there's so many, I think the fact that she is a type of a doctor, and this was before it was before she wrote the book, I think, but the type of doctor that would be open to alternative experiences. Like this was in Sedona. And so there's a lot of people who say there's something really, cool about Sedona and the energy there. To the fact that she's like open to going there and having that experience, just like you said, Kim, kind of lends itself to her being who she is, and the fact that she did rebel against the system basically and is now trying to change it, which is really awesome. Like she's not just writing a book, like her and her brother are actually actively working to try to change change
And
things.
they make a really good team because he has the insight on that, on the side of like
Industry.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
like wasn't he like a oh, what do they call them when
He
they
was a lobbyist
yeah,
in DC.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no better team than a medical doctor and a lobbyist to know just how to get
Yeah.
into that realm to be able to talk to the right people, because it doesn't matter how much the medical system tries to change. If we don't change our laws, if we don't change the amount of poison that's allowed in people's food, if we don't stop sending different Cheerio or different Fruit Loops to Canada with
Mhm.
stevia in it than we do for our own kids and our own people with just a bunch of garbage sugar and artificial flavors and all that stuff. If we don't stop doing that stuff, it doesn't matter how much we change our medical system. It's still going to be a sick care system because there's going to be so much sickness. So they are a really good team, and they may actually be able to get somewhere.
I hope so. The fact that they've already been in front of the senator and, in a hearing, and all these people that have, a good voice are being heard now is so encouraging.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to know where I can watch that whole thing because I only saw little clips of it here and there.
I
I
may be
did
able to
see the
try to
whole thing
find
on
it.
YouTube, but I don't remember what channel it was or
It was filmed by the Highwire, so it may be on that their website, because I know that when you look at the clips that are out there, it has an HW in the corner.
Oh,
So I think that those are that means the Highwire, and
what
so
is
it
the
may.
high wire?
Oh, so the Highwire is a weekly medical news program. I watch it every week, but they're part of they're kind of associated with their main company is the Informed Consent Action Network, and they're a nonprofit, but they're like the legal branch. They're suing the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, all these government agencies. They're looking for safety in the pharmaceuticals. And
Oh,
yeah, and for their focus is more vaccines, but they're branching out into other things. Like they had the Vanny who went before Kellogg's. They've got a bunch of like environmental people that come on the show. It's really interesting. And anything that's to promote health and accountability for the lack of safety trials for medications, nutrition. It's very interesting.
and RFK, since he was I think he was like the um, sponsor, for lack of a better term. I mean, I think they worked like with him. I mean, I know there were other guests, but I think he was like one of the main ones that set it up. It might be on his website. Like there's probably a link to watch the whole
Might
thing
be
on his site. I just
try
watched it on
looking for
YouTube.
it on Rumble. You might find it
Yeah.
on Rumble
hmm.
because a
I don't
lot of
have
I'm just
Rumble.
really. I have mixed feelings about this being made a political thing, though, because I feel like it's just like Dr. Berry said in his video last week, like, this is not political. And I'm really afraid what's going to happen is if we start politicizing this and it starts being taken up by one side and not the other, that it's going to be made into like how people looked at people who wouldn't take the COVID shot. It was just like, it's
I
not
don't think that's
political.
going
It's
to
about
happen.
health.
I don't think that's going to happen because I know that I watched the report following the Senate hearing, and they said that this was so well attended by people from both sides of the aisle.
I
This
hope
is
so.
a topic. Yeah, this is a topic that both sides can agree on because we all want
But
our
when they start
citizens
calling it, when
healthcare.
they start calling it "Make America Healthy Again," that turns a lot of people off. And so, like
Well,
that's concerning to me because this is not political.
No,
And
it's
I
not at
agree that
all.
it's not, but it's getting the word out. And, I just don't, I'm like Lynn. I mean, I don't see it as being, I mean, I understand that, like, okay, RFK was the big proponent of it, and then he's joined the Trump team, and so I know that
Yeah, and that alone makes it
because people don't
that
like
turns a
Trump.
lot of people off of
But if
even
people are
being
going
open
to,
of
but if
even
people are
being
going to
open.
reject, if people are going to reject Make America Healthy Again because of their political viewpoint, that's on them.
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of
Yeah,
the
that's
but
way I feel
you
because
can
I
you
just
can word it to where it's not where it doesn't immediately turn people off. You know, like people are going to associate that with Trump. And that's what I just don't like that. I wish
yeah,
they
it's kind of
would,
hard not to,
you know.
because
but
he's
at
on the
least
team.
here's the thing. I try very hard to look for the bright side in everything, maybe to the point of being ridiculous about it. But the way I feel is that it is getting attention, it's garnering discussion. And just like us with the vegans, I mean, I totally agree with the vegans. We need to get away from the processed food. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot
Yeah.
of things that we can unite on. And it shouldn't be a political issue, but at the same time, you've got to have some people with that clout in there to make those changes because we can, as a grassroots. I think if we at the bottom start making changes along with some key people on the top, then eventually things will change.
Yeah.
And it'll just take some time to do that. But I am glad that people are discussing it. I've had a couple of conversations, like when I went to the doctor, you know, to get for my physical, and I talked to the nurse, for example, and you know, she was, you know, because I told her that I was, you know, I don't eat processed food. I haven't eaten processed food, and you know, well, I mean, I don't say never, but you know what I mean. Generally, I don't eat processed food. And she was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah. She says, do you follow RFK? And I was like, yeah. I mean, so she didn't even really mention, you know, Trump. But
But
I
I
mean, at
mean,
the same,
even
you know,
RFK, like, what does eating real food have to do with politics? Like, it's totally
well,
like
because he's
everybody
been
deserves real food, you know?
right, everybody does. But here's the big problem. Nobody on the top ever addresses it. Like he's the main one, like
Yeah.
in a
I
political
I am
position.
glad that he brought it to the forefront, but I just don't like it being polarized like that because what'll happen is, you know, people on the left will be just, you know, I don't know why we can't just be a bit be one big family, you know, because
Let's
most
just
of us
all
are
get along.
closer to the middle than anything.
Mhm.
And no matter if we're left or right, we're a lot of us are more closer to the middle and closer
Yeah,
to
I
Moderate.
each
agree
other
with
than,
that.
you know.
I
So it's
think
Yeah.
just
I think
oh
people, once they just get into looking at what he really, because he was the only one. I mean, nobody else was really talking
yeah.
about that. And I mean, I had watched some of his stuff before. Um, and so the fact that he's actually talking about it and people are listening because people called him a kook. I
I
mean, they were
know.
really
And
mean to
that's
him.
another thing is like when people associate with a political candidate like that, then they can just like dismiss them, you know, like they could just be like, oh, I think they called it like the woo woo party or something. And I'm like, that is not like, what the hell are you talking about? That is
Well, but
not
that's
woo woo.
media. You got to look, the media
Oh,
does a
they just,
lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
they do a
infuriate
lot of
me because what they do is they just polarize us so much that each side is thinking like the left is thinking the absolute that everybody on the right is just far right extremists, right? And everybody on the
right.
right saying everybody on the left is far right or far left extremists. And most of us are not that way.
Right.
We're just
Right.
normal, everyday people. Like we
Yep.
just happen, like we have our life experiences, and that's what makes us choose one side or the other, right? Based on just our unique life experiences. But if we didn't talk about that at all, we would never know that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
so
I mean,
disgusting, the whole thing.
I think they're trying to, you know, educate our leaders, not just the leaders, but people, because it is US regulatory agencies that
Mhm.
are letting things pass through, like with the
Yep.
dyes and all the
Yeah.
chemicals and stuff in foods. And so if you want to affect agencies that are US government agencies, it's unfortunately you have to do it at that level. There's a lot of people who aren't too bad with the combination with RFK and Trump because it was a lifetime Democrat. I mean, his own party rejected him because he was like he's an old school Democrat. You know, he's for freedom and businesses and
Free
civil
speech.
rights and free speech and against government oppression. And I'm totally on board with that. So some people see it as kind of a good combination. I mean, Trump was a lifelong Democrat. So
That's true.
it's
I
yeah,
can't
it's
with
only
him.
he was a lifelong Democrat. So you've got two lifelong Democrats that have joined forces on this issue. And I agree with the meat tea the media. The
Yes.
media
It
has
is the media. They try to
yes,
make everybody hate each other. That's what the
yes,
media
I
does. That's
know.
why I don't watch it.
yeah,
I
that's
had to
what
quit watching it because like my own mother and I could not have a conversation without something coming up where we were just like wanting to butt heads. And I'm like, Mom, I've quit watching this stuff
Yeah.
because the thing is they just want to show us what will get them the most money. That's it. That's all. When you finally figure out these media corporations, they just want to make money. And whatever gets us to, and I learned this a lot in doing the little TikTok, advertising stuff I've been doing. Because in order to get people to stop, you have to get them to stop and watch in like the first 3 seconds of your video, right?
Mm.
Well, in order to do that, you have to do something that's just like, oh, what is she doing? And
yeah.
that's the
You
same
gotta be
thing the
crazy.
media does with us. And it's just infuriating, really.
Yeah, you got to have some sort of clickbait because I mean it's
Yeah.
not helping too that attention spans are getting to be shorter and shorter. And
But the
what
media
in the
controls so much because, like, you think about all of the ads, and Casey Means and Callie have talked about this, where we are one of two countries in the world that allows medications to be advertised on television. And New Zealand does, but they have stricter regulations on it than the United States. And so those medical companies advertise big money on, every commercial that you see. I mean, it's weird. Like sometimes I'll be at the doctor's office, and unfortunately that's what they have on. A lot of times I'll ask them to turn the channel, but I mean, it's all these drug commercials.
yeah.
So they're not going to criticize the drugs. If
I
anybody's
know.
on there being interviewed about the drug, it's going to be something positive.
But if
Like,
if we
Ozempic is
could
a
pass
miracle.
legislation where these drug companies could not advertise, only the United States and New Zealand allow drugs to be advertised on TV. What possible purpose would there be for a drug to be advertised like that? If you want a drug, you should go to your doctor. He should be the one telling you what drugs exist.
I think they do it because they're giving the media companies a lot of money, and so the media is not going to say anything bad about their drug.
Well,
but it should be illegal. Like
it
it's
should.
The biggest advertisers for media are the drug companies.
Yep.
I know.
How many times have we watched something on TV and it says sponsored by Pfizer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, too many to count. Well, I don't watch TV, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't watch TV anymore.
I read that something like 75% of the media's advertising comes from drug companies. So they have a huge influence on what we see. So it's unfortunate that the situation is what it is as far as having to get into the politics of it, but I'm glad that we have good people doing it.
Yeah, that it's actually
that are
being talked about. And Casey and Callie, I think, are going to be able to make their case, and they're going to be on depending on how it all goes. I mean, who knows? But I mean, they're supposed to be on like a part of the cabinet that would actually, start working to look into things and change laws. And I hope that happens. I mean, I hope that change can happen. I mean, but you're right, Lynn. It has to be at that upper level to get the laws and stuff changed. We can fight at the bottom in terms of educating people about the right way to eat and just different things, but really in terms of like all of that about the medications being advertised on TV, which is just ridiculous, and all the other stuff, right? It's going to have to come from the top.
Can you imagine if they changed the law so that it wasn't just, okay, you can't advertise drugs? What if they changed it so that you can't advertise food products with chemicals?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you would never want to advertise a food
Nothing would
product
get
that didn't have a
advertised.
chemical, like, oh, here's this lettuce.
And after what we read last week, it's like, what if it was you can't advertise anything that has something that could be like a harmful toxin? It's in everything. There'd be no more advertising.
Well, there wouldn't be any advertising. That's true. But at
Well,
least
they
if
could
they got the
advertise for
drugs off of
things that they
there.
used to advertise back in the 80s. I don't remember drug advertisement back then. Do y'all?
Or it would
No.
force the
I mean, like
manufacturers.
clothes, JCPenney's,
Yeah.
or
It
here's a
would
sale at
force the
Macy's.
manufacturers to clean up their products if they want to
Yeah.
advertise,
Mhm.
So
Anyway,
unfortunately,
we're
they're
getting
not
way
going to do
way
it.
off track, but
Yeah, they're not going to do it out of their own ethics if it's going to cost them money. So it's unfortunate. Oh, okay, should we get into the chapter?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So this whole chapter was called fearlessness. The highest level of good energy is being fearless. And I was, she talked about, of course, throughout history and threats and everything. One of the things that I thought was interesting that she said, we now have the technological capability to be exposed to the threats facing any person anywhere in the world 24 hours a day, all live streamed to a screen in our hands. So she was talking about how historically we could personally experience a threat if we came in contact with something that was dangerous, but we weren't experiencing the threats that people all over the world were being exposed to. We were only having to deal with our own threats. Now we're exposed to threats all over the place. And it's so interesting. I kind of put a note here about how, I don't know if you guys experience this or not, but there's times when I startle because someone else in my household, as they're scrolling through things like reels and in shorts and stuff, somebody screams, or there's some scary, like sudden scary noise. And every once in a while I'm like, and it's just kind of alarming. It kind of sets my fight or flight thing into motion. And it's like, then I realize, oh, wait a minute, it's just so-and-so's phone. But I'm like, like that's really new.
Overstimulation constantly, and I feel like my fight or flight is just always just ready. Like it just would take that much for it just to be set off, It's probably
the technology has affected us in a lot of ways, mentally, and like Dave Ramsey, I don't know if y'all follow him, but like he would talk about like back in the 80s, keeping up with the Joneses meant that the neighbors bought a new car. Now it's in your pocket. You can see what people miles away or even in another country have done, and the stuff that they have or the vacations they go on. You get these firsthand, these photos of the beautiful beaches and it just causes people to then you're not content anymore with what you have. And you
then
feel
their
like,
houses too.
Yeah.
Like, everybody all of a sudden has an all gray and white kitchen.
Yeah.
You're like,
that's true.
My little kitchen.
Like, I still got Formica.
Even with wars, it used to be that what you saw was what news reporters would capture on film.
Yeah.
And so you get, some evening news. I mean, I remember growing up, it was like we had a half an hour of local news and then we had a half an hour of world news. If there was a war, you got to see a few clips of whoever happened to be on the ground at that time reporting. Now everyone's got cell phones. And so you're having all this live footage and it's, all the time. It's very disturbing.
It is. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's like I told my husband, he was getting so worked up even in the last election, because he gets really into politics. He hasn't gotten into it this time because he's like, no, my sanity is worth more than this.
Protect yourself.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like it really, because they really play on your emotions, the news, the politics, all of this stuff, and the world events and stuff. But I told him, I pointed out to him, I said, look, babe, if you didn't know any of this stuff was going on, all you would know is what's in these four walls, and maybe outside at work or your friends or your neighbors or whatever. I'm like, you need to come back to that, because ultimately, yes, do the politicians, do what they do affect us? Yes, sure, it does. But it's not as intense of an effect, that if you didn't know it existed at all, that you would notice that much difference, like you have to just come back to center, and live in your world here, because otherwise you're just going to stay tore up mentally and emotionally about something that you have absolutely no control of whatsoever. Like, even if there are people that are dying for unjust reasons over in this place or that place, what can you do about it? Like, literally, you can do absolutely nothing about it. And I'm not saying like put your head in the sand, but at the same time, like, there's only so
Informed,
much
not
you can do.
obsessed.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's only so much you can do.
Because I can't, like, years ago, I used to be not involved in politics, but I mean, I was interested, I guess, probably like your husband. And so I would read up on all this stuff and everything, and I would read things that and it would really tick me off. And but there was nothing I could do about it. And it just fed into it, and it just made me miserable. And so that was the beginning of the end in terms of even watching the news, because this was this was years ago, because the news doesn't report the truth. We all know that they don't, or they might report one side of a story, but not the other. And so I don't watch it. So I'm informed, but I'm not obsessed. I don't watch a bunch of that stuff all the time, because it's depressing and you can't change it. And so I clean up my own backyard, meaning that, okay, what are some things that I can control? Okay, well, I can pay off my debt slowly, but surely I paid off my debt. Okay, I can have a budget. I can do certain things. I can cut back over here, and I can, do this, and I can save money over here, or just whatever. But you come up with a plan of things and of course it saves money, like the way we eat, because we eat pretty clean, with the exception of maybe some potatoes and M&Ms every now and then. we eat pretty clean. So, so it's like, okay, so these are the things that I can control, and these are the things that I can do to make my life better. And then I can cast my vote. And then beyond that, that's it. I'm not, I'm not going to dwell on it, because it's bad for my mental health. I can't do it.
It's like back, probably 30 something years ago, we had to make my grandmother stop watching the news, because I feel like the older we get too, the more that we like internalize that stuff. Younger people, they see it and they're just like, meh, can't do anything about it. It doesn't really affect me. And they go on with their life. Right.
Yeah.
But we like want to help. We want to make things better. But we're actually doing something here, because we're trying to make a grassroots change, just us, and just maybe help just a few people to eat real food. And that's really all we can do, is just affect the people in our immediate.
But if everybody can help one person, think of what change can happen just by helping one person. So I'm hoping that somehow one person maybe finds it valuable that that my anxiety is gone since I went carnivore. Or, Lynn is managing her MCAS better, and Kim is managing her candida and other issues better. These, blood sugar and all that. I mean, hopefully, even if it's just one person for each of us, then they can help one person, and then it'll spread in a good way, and not a negative, bad way. And I just think if we all put out good vibes, and send love to each other and try to truly help, that I think we can really have change in the world. I think we can do it.
Yeah, I think that it's important to have some balance, and I don't think people should have their head in the sand, but I agree that there's so much that is out of our control, and so it's important to take breaks. If you do, not get obsessed over watching the news, but I think it's good to be informed, but you can't inundate your life with it. You have to focus it so that you're not focused on what is actually in your life. You have to focus on what you actually is in your periphery and what you can control. And and then if there's something you can do, like go vote, or whoever you want to vote for, go vote. I mean, at least we can vote. Whether it's going to make a difference in your area or not, who knows? But you can feel like at least you've done something. And but then go back to focusing on your life.
And also to realize that, like, we can't demonize people on the other side, no matter which side we're on, right?
No.
Because we all know and love people that are on a side opposite from us, right?
Are they bad people that have been mean to me, acting, and
me too.
I could just express an interest in somebody and get my head bitten off. This was a few years back when I was still on social media and stuff. I mean, I don't know. There are people that just are ugly, and I don't want to participate in that.
I think that's the minority. I think that the people that are going to just bite your head off for whatever viewpoint you have, I think they're loud, but I think that they're the minority. I think, like Kim said earlier, I think that most of us are in the middle.
Yep.
And, we're reasonable.
Yeah.
And, I like to assume that people have good motives for whatever, especially when they're first starting out on whatever, let's say it's a politician or whoever it is. I just like to assume that they care and that they're in it for the right reason. Now, whether they get corrupted later on,
well, like doctors, they get sucked into a system that they did not expect.
Right. Yeah.
And, that happens with politicians or people who get into politics a lot. They're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And yes, they might intern in their youth. A lot of people know that they want to be in politics early in life. Like there's a Ramsey personality. Oh gosh, I just went blank on his name. But anyway, Ken Coleman, but he had wanted to be in politics in his youth. And so he worked for the Virginia legislature and did all of this stuff. So, you're kind of exposed, but you don't really know, when you're running for office, what actually, whose palms you're expected to grease and all that until you get in there. And, if you have to make all these connections and stuff, and and doctors, same thing. They get into these, they have to kowtow to the insurance companies, and they have to do all this, they have to tick all these boxes. And, I'm sure that for both of those professions, it's frustrating. And because I can't imagine that most people go into these, whether it's a doctor or politics, with this nefarious, I'm gonna, no, they want to help society. They have an urge to serve, and then it just gets twisted because of the systems that they happen to be a part of. That's just my thought.
I think so too.
I think so too. I think that it's they probably don't even really realize just how corrupt the whole system is until they get deep in it.
Right.
But anyway, we gotta go on with our book.
Yes.
Even though this has been a really good discussion.
I know. I enjoy discussions like this because I think it helps. I just think it helps people to see that all of us are just human, and when we all get to talking, I know that we've all got differences, whether it's geographic, whatever differences in our lives, but we have a lot of commonalities too. And it's a good thing to focus on those to where we can unite.
Well, and it's nice for people to see that, everybody in a movement, everybody in the, ketogenic movement, the carnivore movement, we're not all of one ilk, we're not, we're different. We're totally different people that share a common interest of just wanting to get healthy by eating real food. It's so basic, and I think it can be done, but like you said, kind of like a grassroots thing. And I think Casey and Callie are perfect to lead the charge because they are not giving like energy from, they're not giving a bipolar type energy. They're giving
They're not politicians.
they're giving we care about people,
Yeah.
and we're trying to do what's best for America and for, I mean, everybody feeds off America, basically. Whatever we do is what other people will, they will copy what we do, basically.
Except for the whole stupid chemicals in the food.
Well,
It's like,
I mean,
yeah,
good on them. I mean, maybe we should be copying them. I'm not saying they
maybe we
should
should be
copy us.
copying them.
I'm just saying that's what happens.
They definitely watch us, that's for sure. So it's good. Yeah, like Carrie said, exposing corruption. I think that hopefully that's what they're going to be able to do, is expose the corruption in the food
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
My dogs are getting ready to bark. I gotta mute.
So, okay. All right. So anyway, so this chapter is about not having fear. What did you think about, like, is there anything in particular that jumped out?
Well, let me thumb through here. Well, it's kind of interesting. She was talking about training our brain to heal, and I'm kind of into I'm into like all that personal development, and I meditate and things like that. And so like what I'll do, for example, first thing in the morning, I meditate and I visualize how the day is going to go. I clear my mind, and same difference. You're firing and wiring your neurons differently, and you're making different connections to kind of get the negativity, because humans tend to think in terms of the worst case scenario. Our brains tend to scan for danger, which is a good thing, but then it focuses on that too. And so when she was talking about training our brain to heal, and she's talking about, we have to improve the hardware and the software psychology and frameworks. And so it involves, she's talking about managing and healing stressors, traumas, and thought patterns that limit us and contribute to our poor metabolic health and thriving. And I think that's important to do, you train your brain to just, like, for example, you visualize how you want to be. Like, I'm a person who gets up every morning and takes a walk. I'm a person who meditates. I'm a person who whatever. And you just see yourself as that new person. And eventually your brain, you start actually seeing yourself that way. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I don't perfectly get up and go walk every single day. I don't perfectly do a lot of things. Well, I don't do anything perfectly, I don't guess. But I can certainly ramble, but I do that perfectly. But it's your body, your physical body, and your brain. All of you are one organism, and having that mental clarity and clearing yourself mentally also feeds into your health too.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of expound on that, she, in the bottom of page 243 and then in 244, she said, your cells listen to all your thoughts through biochemical signals, and the message they are getting from chronic stress is to halt the production of good energy. I have, over the years, like, I've had my share of mental health issues, particularly anxiety, and even ended up in a psychiatric hospital in my early 30s and went through a whole ton of, therapy and all that. Unfortunately, tons of medication. But one thing I learned to do was to speak verbally what I wanted it to be, not how I felt necessarily, but how I wanted to feel. Mm-hmm. And, the therapist taught me to do that. And like, for a while I had a bit of agoraphobia too. And I had to go do exposure therapy in Costco. Because Costco is the one place.
Wow, that's a crazy place to do it.
It would send me, back then, Costco would send me into a panic attack. And
I mean, it sends me into one sometimes, and I'm like a kind of a people person. But
right.
I get in there and I'm just like, oh, this is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It is overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And when you're dealing with severe anxiety, all that stimulation is a lot. So he would have me, before I went into Costco, he'd have me just go in for like 5 minutes at first, but he would just have me speak out loud to myself, I'm safe. I'm safe. And so that's when I first started learning the power of actually saying what you really want to be true. And to the point where now, like if I have a day where I don't feel very well, I'll totally lie to myself. I'll say, I feel great. I feel awesome. I feel wonderful. I've got
I do
energy.
that too.
I can feel it working.
Yeah,
It's like,
I'm always doing that. Like I have always, and I've preached it to my husband, like think positive. Okay. You have to think positive because you're bombarded by negativity everywhere you go. You're bombarded by just pushback, and just like I said, we've spent the whole weekend clearing this stupid drain. If anybody had told me on Friday you're going to spend the entire weekend clearing a stupid drain and then getting your sink put back together, I'd have been like, dang, what a waste. But you just have to go into things, if you go into things thinking positively and thinking solutions, and I've always tried to be solution oriented because your brain does mess with you. Like mine messes with me constantly, but I just have to, no, don't, you start going down that, nope, just block it out, let's redirect, let's do something. I have these things that I do that are like little kind of self-care, self-soothing things that I do. One of them is making my coffee and making it just the way I like it, and just stuff like that. And then like even I would do a reboot. Just okay, we're going to go take a shower. We're just going to completely reboot this whole day, right? It's not going well, whatever. And it's just like it's something that I don't often verbalize to other people, but I'm constantly kind of self-soothing. And I think if you don't know how to do that, that's when you can really get in trouble as far as mentally and with anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And sometimes just music helps a lot.
I highly recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself because, there are so many great, RJ Spina, Spina, is another good author, but they talk about how you use your mind and you refocus to just train, you change your thought patterns. Like, in other words, you look at how would I normally react in this situation? Okay, what can I watch for so that I won't react that way again? Because a lot of times what happens when we have a bad day, what'll happen? You stub your toe or something, then you start cussing, then you drop your coffee, and it's just this big chain of events.
It's spiraling. I call it spiraling.
And so then, like you were saying, Kim, you just say, okay, stop. Okay, we're going to start over. I'm going to go get a shower and I'm going to start over. And this time it's going to be a great day. We're going to reboot and I'm in charge here. So I'm going to make this day a great day. And now it may not end up being necessarily a great day, but it would be certainly better than it would have been. If you'd have been continuing down that spiral. But we have to train ourselves to actually see and notice because, Dr. Joe Dispenza has a great speech. He was with, that motivational speaker, big time guy. Well, I know there's several, but anyway, what is it? Tony Robbins. Okay. Tony Robbins has the video. And so Dr. Joe goes into this thing about the typical person's morning where basically you do the same things every day and you can pick up a day and move it and set it on to the next day. And because we're such creatures of habit, like we don't really think about what we do, that we just repeat. And then he's like, so if you don't do anything different, how can anything different happen? How can you change whether it's your money, your health, whatever, if you're not changing something about it. And so you become aware then of what you want to change. And then you visualize how you're going to do it. And it's fascinating to watch and read about that stuff. And it's really helped me. So hopefully it'll help somebody else. Because I think it goes along with all of this, improving your diet and everything. You just holistically and getting out in nature. I go outside barefooted. I do. I go outside barefooted every day.
Well, that's
Yeah.
one of the
You
things
know,
that's one of
yeah.
the things she listed as, you know, as things you can do. I mean, she talks about the different, like how's the stress and fear and all of this affects your biology, which I think we all understand. It's not good for us, and it releases inflammatory cytokines, and it causes problems. But she mentions it causes mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress, inflammation, elevates your blood sugar, your metabolic markers are going to be bad. So then we know how bad it is for us. But like you said, she talked about training your brain to heal. We have to find a way to feel safe in order to be as healthy as possible. It's kind of hard when you're constantly exposing yourself to stuff to feel safe. And she mentioned how people now, there's so much, fewer people nowadays that actually feel safe than used to be. Like, I know, Kim, you were talking about, was it last week or one of the weeks you were talking about how like you grew up, like you could go out in the country, out in the woods or whatever, and like felt safe and could play as a kid. And there was never any concern for danger. And that's just changed,
Yeah. Yeah, and I equate it to being in the country versus the city, but I know I have friends from the city who, when they go out to the country, they feel scared. They think it's creepy, and I'm like, I feel totally safe here. In
Because
the
they're,
city
yeah,
is where I feel like I'm always having to look around like I'm scared of people, not of
yeah.
not of imaginary things in the woods, and you know.
Right. But it's part of our modern society. Like, would they feel that way if they didn't watch a bunch of horror movies,
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And
And
I
would
actually read something that the crime statistics are not that much more different than they were 40 years ago. That it's there again, media, if
It's
it
the
bleeds,
we are
it
hear about it.
leads.
yes, we are inundated with just
Yeah.
like, oh, this and child sexual trafficking and like all this stuff. Like this stuff has always existed. Children have always been kidnapped. People have always, murdered other people. Like it's horrible, but it's true. But we weren't inundated with it constantly. Just like if we would only hear about something like that if it happened in our town or, down the
Yeah.
street. And so we thought, oh, this is a safe world because nothing like that ever happens around here. Even when you watch people on the news, sometimes they'll say, well, nothing like that ever happens around here. Well, that's
Yeah.
how people back then would have thought nothing like that ever happens because nothing like that ever happened around there. Right.
And
But
so, but it's to the detriment of our children. And we were talking about this too. Yes, we were the Gen Xers, or I'm a Gen Xer, and
me too.
I'm on the older end of the spectrum of Gen X. But yeah, we raised as a generation, we raised our kids that way. I don't know. I guess maybe because we were inundated with all these, as media grew and the internet grew and everything just, I don't know what caused us to do it exactly, but we started smothering our children, and it's
Well,
to their
and we
detriment.
probably could have been watched a little closer.
Maybe, but maybe we could have.
I
Well,
feel
I
like we were
remember,
allowed to do things that like, oh my
oh
god.
yeah, free for all. But I remember when I was growing up, when things changed as far as with my household, because I lived down in California, and there was huge, like all over the news, this young girl who was kidnapped and murdered that lived not in my town, even like an hour and a half away. But there was like a lengthy search to try to find her and figure out what had happened. They finally found her body, and I think they caught the person. But I just remember that was kind of like in my childhood, that was the turning point. Like it seemed like after that, my mom was a lot more protective, and she was a lot more careful with what she let me do. But it was because we heard about it on the news. It was all over the news, and it wasn't even in our town. But I think that that's where the media comes in, and you're inundated with things, and it may be something that happened like 5 states away if you're in the US.
Yeah.
But it's like the fact that it happened puts the thought in your mind. Well, if it could happen there, it could happen here.
Yeah. And I mean, even just hearing like I notice I change my pattern of behavior and like my comfort level and stuff, just hearing about other things that have happened in my town, or other towns. But like, for example, I heard that there was a lady that walked out to her car to get her groceries, and, you know, these guys robbed her, and it just makes me where I'll go out there at night and I look like a crazy person on my camera, y'all. I'm telling you, I walk out there and I'm just like this. I am like hyper aware of everything around me. If I saw one movement of a cat, I'd probably run back in the house.
Well,
and nowadays they tell us we should be,
but it's not healthy. I'm sure it's not healthy.
Well, I know
not in your own driveway.
Yeah.
There was a rash back in, gosh, maybe 15, 20 years ago of crimes at the grocery store where there was a white van that was supposedly pulling up and snatching women up. And it was close. I mean, it was local to me, like I'm outside of Nashville, and it was in our local area. And I remember, people being, of course, more diligent and, like you wouldn't want to go to the store by yourself and just, things like that. So and of course, people should always be careful, but but in terms of like overall, though, you're right. It's back a while back. It was like if something happened locally to you or, in your region or something, or if it was somebody in your, like, for example, when I was like 10, there was a girl that was murdered and she was my age. And it was a big, it was in the Nashville area, and it was this big murder mystery, this mystery. And I don't think it's been solved yet. Actually, periodically it'll be reported on again. And, every time, like if there was more technology, like with DNA or whatever, they'd kind of resurrect, to see if they could go over the evidence again and just all this. But that kind of, I remember being a kid, and that was scary to me because she was my age, and they were putting this on the news, right. And I remember seeing it. So I don't know, but I just think it's sad that we're all so scared, and it really does affect you. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, other than, you can't like ignore everything, but at the same time, you have to be diligent and you have to be careful. But at the same time, man, if we live based on fear, then how free are we?
Yeah.
Well, we're affecting our bodily health. It affects our physical health and
mental health.
Mental health, right. And your mental health affects your physical health. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's good that she included this chapter because it's kind of wraps a bow around everything. You can't ignore the mental health component of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, of the stuff that she talked about as far as like things you can do, some of them were, like see a therapist and all of that, which is good. She talked about track your heart rate variability, mentioned some, I guess, does the Fitbit actually tracks heart rate variability?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Mine does.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I have to look and see if my watch does. I doubt it. But, the breath work, which she talked about, I think is really easy and important. She talked about box breathing and improving to stimulate your vagus nerve, help your parasympathetic nervous system. Maybe I need to do that more because if I'm startling when I hear someone screaming on, someone's phone near me, that's probably not a good thing, But I've always been sensitive to hearing people just scream. It's like, I just get startled. It's the one thing that drives me.
Good reason, right?
Good reason. Like I never let my kids do these like curdling screams. They would be in trouble. The neighbors, next door neighbors, their kids are getting a little older now. But man, when they were little, they were always playing in the backyard. I would hear these blood curdling screams coming from out there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I need to call 911?
Right.
It's like, but this is these kids. It's like they scream like someone's killing them. And so it's like I've developed this startle thing when I hear screaming. It's like if you're having fun, laugh.
Yeah, or you might
Yeah,
squeal
I
a
mean,
little
even
bit.
when we're in the swimming pool, you know how kids will scream in the swimming pool and stuff, and I've always told my boys, like, you know, don't stop screaming. There, we've got neighbors. Like, you know, it's
Oh
just you can
my
have
gosh.
fun without screaming.
Oh yeah, don't scream. Like if you're hurt, fine, scream. But if you're not
Right.
hurt, laugh, squeal, you know, be loud. I
Yeah,
don't
because there's a
care.
difference between a squeal and a scream. And,
Yes.
squealing when you're
Yes.
having fun, that's one thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, we all have kids. I mean, we know the
Yeah.
difference between all their different sounds and when we need to come running and when we can just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I need to go back and do some of the box breathing. And kind of help settle my get my parasympathetic nervous system in better shape. So,
And I like what she says here about meditation, because so many people are concerned about doing it wrong, and my brain will, and I think most people's brain does, but mine will it'll go this way and then this way. And I have to be like, okay, come back. But really, that mindful meditation, you get a thought, and it's like, but you can't help thinking, right? But
yeah.
your thought like goes off in a different direction. You're like, okay, no, we're going to come back here. And you do exercise that muscle, so to speak, in your mind, where you can concentrate and just bring it back and bring it into calm. And I like the way she talks about this. So having so many thoughts pop up might seem like a failure, but noticing them is actually the work.
That's something that goes contrary to what my impression of meditating was, because maybe it's from watching Eat, Pray, Love, or what. I don't know if you guys watched that movie with Julia Roberts, but part of the movie, she goes to India, to this place where she's learning how to meditate. And the impression I get every time I see something about meditation, either movies or TV or whatever, it's like you got to clear your head, and like
Think
you're
of
supposed to
nothing,
clear
which
your
is
mind. Think of
impossible.
nothing, which is impossible, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm glad that she brought this up.
That's why I've never tried, because I'm like, there's no way.
No, that's not what it is
at
all. Yeah.
There's no way. So she said she said that whenever a thought pops into your head, notice it, and then you take note, you call it, you name it, you call it thought in your head, then you let it go and you reset. So just acknowledge the thought as being, don't ignore it. Don't try to push it away. Just acknowledge it and then move on. I really like that, because it's like, okay, then that takes the pressure off.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's like, I don't have to worry.
I've never tried like actually meditating per se, like following any rules or anything, but I do this thing where, especially if I'm like really wanting to think about something, or, I've got some kind of problem or something, I do this thing where I will lay down and be in a state where I'm kind of half awake, half asleep. And it's easiest to do while I'm getting massaged, because they keep waking me up. I'll just keep waking up. So I stay in that kind of limbo state. And in that state where you're very, very relaxed, you're almost asleep, I find that I just like play out so many things, and I like resolve so many things in my mind. And I don't know what that's called, but
sounds a lot like meditation to me.
I mean, it feels meditative, but I'm not trying to not think about things. I'm just letting things play. It's almost like a movie, It's almost like a dream, but you're awake. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think more than anything, I think we try too hard. And I did when I first started meditating. I mean, I would get frustrated because I would just try too hard, and and it wouldn't end up being relaxing at all. But then when you just like let your mind go, but then you would notice your thoughts, but yet you're just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but the more you do it, the better it gets. And and of course, nobody ever gets perfect at it, because unless you're maybe a Dalai Lama or something.
But if the thoughts are okay and you don't have to fight the thought, then that's so encouraging. I bet you what I was doing as a teenager at that camp and going and sitting out on that log and everything was probably meditation, because it was quiet. and I was noticing my surroundings. So I was noticing the birds chirping and the sunshine and then in nature and listening to the creek flow by me. And I think that was probably, I didn't realize it, but I think that was probably meditation what I was doing.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds like it.
It was, I know that I felt so much better afterwards. I'd spend probably a good solid hour out there and I would feel so much better and rested and just calm afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So she also recommends to spend time in nature, which we've kind of already discussed.
Yeah.
Read inspirational and thought-provoking books and texts about mindset, trauma, and the human condition, which
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of that anyway. She recommends Mindset, A Return to Love, Untethered Soul, How to Do the Work, Brain Energy, Hacking of the American Mind, Brainwashed, How to Change Your Mind, Waking Up, The Four Agreements, You Are More Than You Think. Oh, I've heard You Are More Than You Think You Are. I've heard a lot about that book recently.
Mm-hmm.
The Book of Boundaries and Getting the Love You Want, 4,000 Weeks and Attached. But I mean, there's many of them out there. We've all seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Aromatherapy. She also recommends aromatherapy. And that's another thing that I do if I'm like in a bit of a funk. I like, what can I do to change my environment just a little bit? I have these incense sticks that I absolutely love. Like, the smell of them just, I don't know. I just love it. And it's like these specific ones that I got a recommendation from a friend to get. I smelled it in the studio that he owns. And I'll just burn one of those and it kind of just calms me just a little. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just that little reboot.
The lavender oil really calms me. I've used it a lot. And just, smelling it, and probably within 30 seconds, I can kind of feel myself calming down. So the lavender works really well for me. Not everyone can handle the scent of it. It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like lavender. And then she recommends writing. She said, if you're feeling down or stressed and can't get unstuck, set a timer and write about any problems for 5 minutes. Writing is also an incredible way to channel creativity and to connect with the bigger picture. Many studies have shown that writing is a way to lower distress and improve clinical benefit in patients with anxiety or inflammatory diseases. So,
yeah.
I used to write a lot. I had a journal and I would write in it every day. I mean, for years I did. I might have to burn some of those before I get the bucket.
a burn book.
I might have to. I don't know. Might have to go through them and see what's in there. But anyway, I think that really did help me. I've always, or especially in my youth, I wrote a lot, and I need to get back into that. I don't exercise my creative muscle that much.
I think most of us adults don't.
Yeah.
She also recommends a book that I really love, and it's called The Artist's Way. And it just really focuses on like writing and journaling, and it's very inspirational and just very kind of like getting you in touch with who you are at your core, like kind of like the kid in you before you were, before society impressed upon you, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe that's why she was able to dance on the mountain in the moonlight, because she was going back and letting that child come out. Because that's something that children do, right? They're uninhibited, and they're free and they can dance around and,
Yeah. And you can be that way now as an adult, but you just will turn a lot of people off for some reason. A lot of people can't handle, well, first of all, they can't handle seeing you any different than they have in their mind for you. Like they have this little place in their mind. Lynn is like this. Lynn is my, aunt, sister, cousin, whatever. And she's like this. And this is the way I'm comfortable with her being. And even something as minute, right? It's minute to us, as having a YouTube channel just freaks people out so bad that it's like they just are so embarrassed by it, and they're not even the ones doing it. I'm like, honey, don't, and it's obvious, like how people will act towards you. They'll be like, oh, you have a YouTube channel, but then you never see any evidence of them watching it. They never make any comments. And it's like, okay, I know you've seen it. So why are you acting so weird? Like, you're the weird one, not me. People want to keep you in that box. They do not want you to, to me, it's kind of like the crabs in a bucket mentality. People they don't want you to escape from the confinement.
They want to keep you like and some people are unhappy too. Like some people would like to do a YouTube channel and just haven't worked up the nerve yet. And so,
but it's important not to let other people keep you in a box. Like, they can keep you in a box all they want, but if you let them influence you to keep yourself in a box, then that's not good. You need to just ignore them,
Yeah, I think I let people keep me in a box too long in my life. And, when I started just doing me and just doing what I wanted to do, then people adjust, or they don't, and then they can just not. I mean, they can just
to a certain age. I think a lot of us get to a certain age where we stop caring what other people think. And for me, it was when I turned 50. It was like, I don't care anymore. Yeah, I'm just going to be me, and whatever. People that like me will be around me. People who don't like me won't, and that's good.
Right?
Because I don't want someone around me that doesn't like me.
I mean, honestly, you want to attract your tribe. You want to attract people who like the real you, so that you can be yourself around them.
I think one of my things with myself is that by nature, and I'm very much like my father as far as his personality, by nature, I'm a peacemaker and I tend to be a conflict avoider. And I just want everyone to be happy. And I want everyone to get along and don't want to invite trouble, but you have to be careful because you can compromise who you are when that's your main goal is, sometimes you just have to draw those boundaries and say, look, I'm not going to make everybody happy. Not everyone's going to always be at peace with everything I do. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I can remember very distinctly being in, I think it was the 7th grade, and finding out that sometimes people just didn't like you and there was actually no reason for it. And I was just distraught because I thought, you mean I've acted a certain way towards them and to get them to like me, and they still don't like me? And my mom's like, sometimes people just aren't going to like you. Like, not everybody's going to like you. And it was so shocking to me. I don't know. It seems silly now.
It was like, so there's nothing I can do to make these people like me. And it's not like, but I know exactly where you're coming from there, Kim, because it's like not that you necessarily want to be a different person, but it's like, oh, so these people just aren't going to like me, and I can't do anything to get them to like me. That is a disturbing thing, and it's hard to
I mean, some people will literally look at you and be like, I don't like her.
I don't like her. Right. I remember having that conversation with my kids when they were going through that phase. It tends to pop up at like 6th, 7th grade. It's a junior high thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to one of my kids and saying, do you like everybody? They said, no. I said, well, okay. So it only makes sense that not everyone's going to like you. You don't like everybody. There's people you don't like, and that's okay. So what do? You just don't hang out with them. So it's like, it was fun. It was interesting because that actually did seem to help my kids go, oh, wait a minute. That's just kind of normal. I don't like everybody.
And like sometimes the people that don't like you I have discovered they're like not even people I really like anyway. So I'm like, why am I worried about it?
Right.
But they're usually the ones that don't like you are always the ones that are going to like cause some kind of problem for you because they don't like you. They're not just going to keep it to themselves, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you really want to be friends with somebody who prejudges you based without even knowing you? That's not the type of person that I want to be friends with.
No, not at all.
Someone who won't even give you a chance to get to know you.
Yeah.
No.
But
No.
still at that age, boy, it was hard. I
That
mean, I
age.
Oh
remember.
yeah, middle school. Brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough. So, all
Of course,
right.
I kind of love I love number 10, intentionality and focus on awe and gratitude. And we've, I think, talked about that to an extent. But then in number 11, practice active self-love. That can be kind of an awkward thing. I think it might be easier for some of us, or at least for me to do as I've gotten older. I mean, but then number 12, be less busy. Yeah, well, sometimes
I'm trying to work on
I'm
that.
gonna wave my magic wand.
Oh, I'm really trying to work on that one.
I liked her talking about JOMO. She said, embrace JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Yeah.
That is something you have to kind of train yourself, because we're always into FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. And yeah, and that's probably one reason why people are always grabbing their phones and checking their social media, because like, did I miss something? Is there something important? You know, so I think the first way we can apply that is to apply it to our phones. It's like, it's okay to not check your social media. It's okay, you know, because I mean, I can get sucked into that too, right? And then you end up scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then I remember one time I stopped and I thought, like, how much of what I looked at on social media today do I actually remember? Did I actually absorb? Right? Like,
Or was actually relevant to you in any way, you
right.
know?
Like, you may have a momentary little laugh or a momentary sigh or whatever, but then you scroll past it and you're gone, and it's gone. And it's like, that was a massive waste of my time.
And it's usually not people who are even in your life. Like I've had this thing where I've always said, okay, about Facebook, do I really need everybody in my life who has known me since I was 5? You know, that it just seems a little weird. Like, you know, there's a time and a season for people to be in your life. And I backed off of Facebook a long time ago, because it's like, you know, you just get these people commenting on your stuff and you're like, I literally haven't seen you since 4th grade.
Right.
What is this? Why are we doing
I've gone through a couple times through my Facebook, and I'm hardly on Facebook ever, but I've gone through a couple times and unfriended a ton of people, and took my actual Facebook friend count down to like 80 something. And that's probably still way higher than I need it to be. But I figured, you know, if someone misses out, they'll send me a friend request and they'll ask me. And it's like maybe 1 or 2 people did that.
Well,
Most of them like,
I have 2. I have my regular, you know, Facebook page that I've had forever. And then I have a Carnivore Nurse Kim Facebook page. And I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. No, it was not. I can't keep up with all this stuff. So I literally don't check Facebook for, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then I'll look and it'll have, you know, hundreds of notifications. And I'm just like, what am I supposed to do with this? I just don't. I'm not into it at all anymore.
It's too much. And I just think for our mental health, we need to step back. And so I really did appreciate this, to embrace the joy of missing out and just think about what you're gaining in your life by not having all that wasted time.
I don't know about you, but I love a good cancel. You know, if somebody calls and cancels plans with me, I'm like, oh, no problem. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh. And then cultivate community. And I can be, well, there's 2 sides to me. I can be a people person, but it's also very easy for me to isolate if I'm, you know, if I'm not careful. So I have made an effort within the last few years, especially after COVID, to, like, you know, for example, see my daughter at least once a week. I have my friend James, and I've got my friend Tammy, some other friends that I make it a point to, regularly do something with, because it is good to have physical, people to be around, but then also finding your tribe like online too. Like you guys, man, I love hanging out with you. I love having these
Yeah, I love it.
discussions. It's great. So I think finding community in both ways is really good for you to do, to interact with people, engage, get to know people. I mean, like Christy, I got to meet her, Christy from Meeting Wellness. She lives in California. And of course, typically in the South, you think about, Californians. Of course, she doesn't live in the typical Hollywood or anything, but I mean, it's still, you almost think of Californians as being kind of like alien or something. But they're not. They're just people.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
I spent the first 45 years of my life in California.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a preconceived image of what you think about California being like, or what you think about people who live there. You don't necessarily think you wouldn't like them, but I mean, it's like, they are kind of a little weird over there. But you realize that,
and they think we don't have any shoes, Carrie.
Exactly.
That's right.
The stereotypes. They think we're barefoot.
Hicks.
Yeah.
Rednecks.
Yeah, we have dirt floors.
We stereotype everybody. I remember when I went away, I went back east to college earlier on, and I had someone tell me I was the whitest Californian they'd ever seen, because they just assumed everybody. I said, so do you think everyone in California steps out of their front porch onto the beach? Like, and everyone walks in.
Well, really, you do. You think about, like, I remember like the movies in the 80s and stuff, which, or the TV shows that used to, and California, sun, beach, I mean, I just thought that's what you did in California. You went to school, and then afterwards you just went to the beach. I mean,
so much of California is not the coast.
Right.
Right. Californians are dudes and chicks.
Californians are just dudes and chicks.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So
I grew up in the Central Valley of California. It's like totally agricultural, surrounded by orchards and fields and everything. And that's where I grew up. And even in Washington, I realized like the coasts tend to be, I think we stereotype the coasts. And I know that the West Coast, I mean, we definitely have our share of vegetarians, and we tend to be kind of artsy and hippie and all of that. But where I live, I mean, like, I don't live in Seattle. I live like about 20 miles north of Seattle. So like everyone assumes that if you're from Washington, you're Seattle.
Oh yeah.
But I don't. I mean, I live in an area where everyone carries guns, and we've got rodeos, and it's like it's the Wild West.
Sounds like you live in the cool part of Washington.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So it's definitely not Seattle. It's definitely a completely different. Even the politics where I live is different than Seattle. So yeah, you can't just stereotype people. But
I think a lot of it's just exposure. Like I said, like in the 80s, I mean, that was basically my education of what things were like because we certainly didn't travel a lot when I was a kid. I mean, my parents didn't have any money. And so if you saw a movie or something or the various TV series, and it just, it's always sunny, there are palm trees. And it was shocking when I actually went to California that the only place that it was like, I thought the whole state was like, I mean, I knew there was desert in California, but I thought that there was more palm trees and stuff. But no, it's right at the coast. Like, like just a few miles.
That's where they mostly are. Yeah.
It was weird. I remember thinking, I just thought there was more greenery.
One of my neighbors on my street has a palm tree in their yard up here.
Oh, wow.
And when we moved up here, now where I lived, we did have palm trees. We had not as many probably as down in LA area, but we did have palm trees, and we had some streets lined with palm trees and everything. But when we moved up here, we're like, I didn't even know palm trees could live in Washington.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
Totally different environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But this a whole thing about cultivating community is an area that I struggle with because I do tend to be more of an introvert. So for me, the online community and hanging out with you guys is really good for me. I probably should learn to cultivate it better in my actual local community. So that's something I need to work on.
Well, you have met with some carnivore, carnivores in your area and had lunch and stuff with them. So that's good. Getting out and doing things like that and going to events. So
I think and last winter I went and did mall walks with women. We've got a part of a Facebook group with the women of our county over women over 50 over our county for our county, and there's events and stuff. So I've done some of that, and when it's cold, go walk the malls, and I should probably do that again this winter.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
socialize. But okay, so the last two, commit to a digital detox. I think we already talked about that. Get off your phones. I was surprised at number 15.
Me too. I'm like, psychedelics? I don't think so.
I mean, I would definitely consider that.
You would?
Well, microdosing, sign me up. I don't think I could do that.
It makes me want to learn more about it because she talked about the mushrooms, and she's talked about how there's we have an idea about the psychedelics, but she talked about guided. Consider psilocybin?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. Yeah, not bison. It's not not a bison. Psilocybin assisted therapy. So guided psilocybin therapy. So she actually talks about, about using these.
I don't know. It just scares me to think because I don't know, back in the 70s.
They scared us to death about it back then.
Yeah, well, not only that, though, like people would have what they would call a babysitter. Like if they took acid or something, they would call them a babysitter, and it would be somebody who would that's what this guided stuff sounds like. And to me, I'm just like, I don't know, man. If I can't have control over my own mind and need somebody externally to kind of, it just makes me nervous.
Making sure that you're safe and that you're medically okay. To me, it would be just like they actually do it where they'll send it to you in the mail. And so this is with ketamine, but it's not with psilocybin. But I think they have something similar with psilocybin in some states. I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but one of my friends has talked about it before, and like the microdosing, you can do that and you don't even know that you're it's not like you're out of you feel the same. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't feel anything. It's like tiny micro doses of psilocybin.
What does it do?
But it can just totally change the way your brain is wired to think, basically. Like it can change, it can make a big difference in like chronic anxiety, depression. Like you should look into it. I mean, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just saying.
No, it's just initially reading this.
Learn about.
Yeah, just initially.
Yeah. I've listened to like whole podcasts about microdosing before.
Interesting.
And, these people take it before they go to work. They don't even know that they're on it really, but it's like rewiring, some bad things in your brain, basically.
Well, I mean, people take all sorts of drugs for their mental health. And so if you get the dosing correct, I can see it. I mean, she says today neuroscientists are almost universally calling research on psychedelics the most promising of their careers. So that says something.
Yeah, like this doctor that was on one of the podcasts that I watched, I can't remember his name, but I mean, I think he was like from Johns Hopkins or like somewhere like that. And
was this Gould Dolan that she talked about, the neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins?
Possibly. I don't know. But basically he was saying that, he was talking about how everything was, or this was given like a bad name back in the, back when there was, I don't know. I don't know all the details, but basically they made it out to be like, dropping acid, like it was just the worst thing that just druggies on the street do and stuff. And it was actually one of the best tools they had to really change someone's, mindset and to help them out of crippling suicidal depression.
Yeah.
I think Carrie actually did a show with somebody that talked about it. I mean, they weren't a doctor, but
yeah. Well, it makes me feel intrigued about looking into it and seeing what sort of benefits it has. I mean, it's just like with marijuana. I mean, marijuana can be used as medicine. I mean, caffeine is a drug that affects your mind, So if we think about the things that we currently commonly utilize, like for a pick-me-up, for you drink some coffee, if it's not at a harmful, hopefully it's not a
just
harmful
think
dose.
about like the only reason why certain things are illegal is because somebody up at the top said that they were going to be illegal. Like why is alcohol legal, but yet most places marijuana is not? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not going to do either one of them really, but like, I just think that people should have the right to do things that don't physically cause them, immediate harm. Like people have the right to smoke cigarettes. That's going to kill you a lot sooner than, a lot of things that are illegal. So.
Well, I've never heard of an angry high person stabbing somebody, but boy, a lot of drunk people do it. I mean,
exactly. Like how many people get drunk and get out on the roads and kill people,
Alcohol is so dangerous, and so many
when you're
people
high, you're just too lazy to do it. You're just too lazy to get in the car. It's like, now forget it.
The alcohol is just the accepted. I mean, it's almost glamorized. And I say that as someone who doesn't really drink. I notice that because I don't drink. Like I notice a lot of people, especially middle-aged moms, just glamorize the drinking of the wine every night and stuff. And I'm like,
9 o'clock and all that stuff.
I don't think that that's, I mean, for me, it's a no for me, but I just like to be at myself. Like if I am intoxicated, I can't do what I want to do. I'm just sitting around.
Oh yeah. I never like to take anything that's going to make me feel out of it or not myself. Even after years ago when I had my gallbladder removed and I had a bad infection in my liver because I waited too long, but I was in the hospital for 4 days. The nurses would get upset with me because I was turning down the Vicodin because they gave me one dose and I hated the way it made me feel. It made my brain feel all fuzzy. And the nurses were like, you need to take this. I'm like, I don't want to take it. I'd rather feel the pain.
Yeah, we have to respect that. People have the right to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a little careful when it comes to substances, but I'm not careful with caffeine.
Yeah, me neither.
So,
but yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, for the record, I'm not saying that I've definitely never done any kind of psilocybin, and I don't have any intentions of doing any. And as a registered nurse, I kind of have to protect my license by keeping my system free of, illegal substances or questionable substances. But,
so is the psilocybin, is it illegal? Like
I think so.
So why is she recommending it if it's illegal?
I think it's probably legal. Let me see. I think it's legal in some places. I'm going to Google it. So it is illegal. But I know there are certain states where they do like, at universities and stuff where you would go and participate in studies and stuff. I don't know, guys. I am not an expert on psilocybin by any stretch of the imagination.
But I am kind of curious.
I'm just checking to see.
If I could find that, if I can find that doctor that was talking about it, I'll send it to you. But I mean,
Okay,
evidently
so
it's just been miraculous for a lot of mental health cases.
okay, so psilocybin mushrooms are not legal in Washington. However, Seattle, Washington decriminalized psilocybin in October of 2021. Most U.S. state courts consider it to be a container for illegal drugs. However, the spores are legal to possess in many areas because they do not contain the drug. So it says the decriminalization movement began in 2019 with Denver, Colorado. Other cities that have decriminalized psilocybin include Oakland and Santa Cruz, California, Washington, D.C., Somerville, Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Northampton, Massachusetts, Detroit, and Michigan. So
yeah, I think it's kind of like weed. It's helpful for people, but yet it has been illegal in most places up until recently. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't change some of that just because of the
and like marijuana, it was first legal for medical use, so you had to have it prescribed and have a doctor, giving it to you. So maybe that will happen with this as well.
Yeah. So
medically assisted.
Yeah. Veterans are getting huge amounts of healing from it. I've heard a lot of it. I really wish I could remember the name of that doctor and podcast because it was I was not open to the idea at all. Like I just thought, oh, that's crazy,
Yeah. Well, she talked about that with
the real information.
Yeah, she talked about that with psilocybin, that there was, a study with UCSF.
That's with what acid is, by the way.
Yes.
That is what? Psilocybin. Acid and psilocybin are the same thing.
Oh, I thought the psilocybin was the mushrooms.
It is. It's all acid. Yeah. When they call it dropping acid, it's mushroom.
See, I know nothing.
Well, me either. I don't know either.
I just know a very little bit. I'm really not an expert on psilocybin.
Okay. So acid, magic mushroom, psilocybin, all the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I learned something.
And LSD too, right? Is it
LSD is a psychedelic.
LSD is something different, I guess. I don't know.
Separate.
I always thought LSD was acid.
I thought LSD was acid too.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Okay, my bad. I misspoke on my drug lingo. Evidently, mushrooms is not acid.
Okay, LSD is acid, right?
Is acid.
Okay. All right, cool. But yeah, so she said that it was helps with PTSD, which is great. So a lot of veterans, I could see that a lot of veterans getting a lot of benefit from it. So
she said a lot of them just went to Mexico for treatment. See Sean Ryan show.
Interesting. All right. Wow. Well, I don't know. Okay. I know we're kind of wrapping the chapter up, but this quote that she put, like she talked about how she found this book called The Odd Woman by Gail Goodwin. And she found it when she went back to visit the childhood home of her mother, or not childhood, but her mother's, where she lived when she was a young adult, found this book sitting there on the sidewalk. Were you guys shocked by the last paragraph of this quote that she put from the book? I was.
What paragraph are you talking about?
Oh,
page 259, where she said she opened the book and read this page. I'll read it
to us.
Yeah. So it's the last paragraph. There's 4 paragraphs. The last paragraph is the one that shocked me. She says, one day the whole universe will accept that there isn't any struggle, essentially, except what our self-centered ego tells us is a struggle. All the disharmonies, conflicts, conversations, love affairs, and failures and death are superficial events. None of them are significant, really. The only significant thing is how we enjoy the moment, our attitude toward the moment. One should simply give himself up to the moment, enjoy it, even if it is horrendous. Are you saying that if a person is getting murdered at a certain moment, he should enjoy that moment? Why not? Why not enjoy it? It's his last moment, the last personal, superficial event in his finite life. Sure, why not enjoy it? What else better is there to do?
Yeah, that was a little odd for me.
That is odd. I think that
Hmm.
it's sort of, what is the guy's name? The one who, very famous book. He had been in a Nazi concentration camp, and it's a very well-known psychological book. Oh gosh, I'm sure one of our chatters probably knows what it is, and I normally do, but what is his name?
I mean, that's enjoying the
something
moment
of
to
life. What is it?
like,
Oh man, it's
how?
That sounds a little toxic to me. Not gonna
What?
lie.
Yeah, that's toxic. It does sound weird, but I think basically it's
Charlie said Night by Ellie Wisely. Or
no.
Wisely? No.
This is a guy. He was a psychologist. He was in Germany in a Nazi concentration camp, and man's something for existence or something like that is the, oh gosh, what is it? And I don't have my phone up here. Man's, not man's reason for existence. It's something like, I know you would know the name of the book if I said it. It's just,
is it Man's Struggle for Existence? That sounds familiar.
Man's Search for Meaning?
yes.
Victor Frankl.
Victor Frankl, thank you. That's kind of the premise that he has in his book, that and it's living in the moment, not letting, like, in other words, maybe they can take my body or whatever, but they can't take my mind. And it's an incredible book. And I think the way that this is worded is kind of funky. I don't think you're necessarily going to enjoy being murdered, but I think what it could mean is like, just like somehow reach the ability to tune it out, or you know what I'm saying? It's like to where you've transcended beyond what is happening with your body.
Right.
I don't think you're going to enjoy it.
You can embrace pain and not fight pain, and it actually makes the pain go down. And I mean, that's a strategy I had to take the whole time I was growing up, and I had the most horrible periods and was in agony and so much pain. I learned to stop fighting it. Yeah. And so, I mean, I could see if this is a situation and you're unfortunately in this situation and there's nothing you can do about it, and you know it's happening, I could see, I mean, I've always been taught you always fight. Like, you fight to the end, because if you could somehow save your life, you may just get the right kick or the right punch or whatever that's going to stop the process. So I wouldn't apply it to this situation, but I think if you look at a difficult
wording was that particular situation was a little.
And again, this is not Casey Means writing this. This is a quote from a book she found. But the fact that she included that and didn't, and almost like, to me, that's almost like endorsing it if you're going to include it in your book. And I just think that paragraph, I would have not endorsed that paragraph.
I would not have included that particular paragraph in my book myself.
Right. I would just say, look, if you are in a situation, like, for example, if you're in pain and there's, instead of fighting it, learn to relax into it. You don't necessarily have to enjoy it, but maybe relax into it, which can be helpful.
Well, and I think that if you're going through something horrendous, there is a lot of freedom and a lot of power in, like, just being okay with it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about being murdered, but like, say you have a really sick family member and you know that they're going to pass, just to find some sort of peace with it rather than to just, I don't know the wording I'm looking for, but to find something good on the other side, I don't know.
Well, and be grateful that you're going to learn and grow from the situation. That can be helpful too. I mean, I've lost both of my parents, so I've been through that. And you do learn, hopefully, you learn to look at the situation with gratitude. And it makes you think about things like this when you're losing someone. So your loved one is on their deathbed. And I know that I just would tell myself, look, this is part of life and I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to learn from this. So there's positive you can find in anything. I'm going to get through this. This too shall pass. Right.
Yeah. And, there's worse things than death. As a nurse, I have seen people in a condition that was worse than death.
Yeah.
And, there's a finality to death. At least it's over,
Suffering is over.
Suffering is over. And sometimes you just see people suffering so much that you just almost pray that they would pass, And
Absolutely.
I remember with my dad, like my dad had ALS, and it wasn't that I wasn't happy that he was passing, but I was happy that he didn't have to get to a point, like he was still walking and talking the day he died. He didn't have to get to a point where he couldn't move anything except for his eyes.
Right.
He could only blink. I've seen people like that. I didn't want
That's
my
something
dad
to be grateful for.
Yeah. My dad didn't have to get to the point where he was literally just suffocated, from just not being able to move his muscles enough to breathe. Like
right.
There were blessings in that,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So just a comment from Josephine.
No, I think she was talking about being in a car accident. And
I laughed so hard when I was in a car and thought we were all going to die. I laughed when they all looked at me like I was weird.
Oh my gosh.
If I had to die, I was going out happy. Plus, I was right about the car. Interesting. Wow. Well, everyone has a different stress response, right?
Yeah. That's why you can't look at these people.
Inappropriate time. I've done that before.
I've actually laughed during a funeral before, and I was like, "Oh my God, don't!" It's like your mind is like the worst thing you could possibly do right now would be laugh.
Right.
And then I didn't laugh out loud, but I just kind of started like laughing, and it was like I couldn't help it. And I was
just going, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to be that person."
There was nothing funny at all. Like it was just a really weird brain thing,
Yeah, just a stress response.
Yeah.
And I have done that before.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think we can put this book to rest.
Yay!
I mean, it was really
forever.
Yeah, there was a lot to it, and she has a lot of great points, and I think I'm glad we read it.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a low carb book,
right.
But I do think there's a lot of good information, and I think that what she's doing and what her brother's doing is really important. So,
yeah. So Josephine's asking about the next book. So Josephine, we are taking a break through the end of the year because we just need a break.
Yeah.
So
I need some downtime.
Yeah. We're not taking a break from our keto study club. We're taking a break from our book club. And we talked a little bit last week about even when we, come back on a different day, maybe to keep our weekends open. And so we will make announcements. We'll regroup sometime in December and talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I would like for us to do something like a book club, or even like just discussion, like have a topic and just talk about it, or just open discussion, whatever, at some point.
One of the things I don't like about having the book club is that I'm sure most of the people here haven't read the book. So I don't feel like they get as much out of us doing this as like they do out of when we read our ketogenic textbook and then discuss,
Josephine, let's see. So I was hoping with the next one I can find it here so I can read along. Awesome. Well, we'll let you know.
Well, definitely. And then also, like, I don't know if you guys are in Dr. Barry's group, but they also have like some book clubs going in there. Just FYI.
Yep.
I'm in his group, but I almost never go there because I've just got.
I am too.
I just have so many like irons
Yeah.
in the fire, you know.
Yeah.
There's only so much
Well,
time.
so I know you guys are both in the Healing Humanity Life group. So Kim, I thought of you. We are having Wednesday. I think it's this Wednesday. Well, look on the group, but we're having Coach Lisa Picker. She has a course in our site about menopause. It's a liver detox course for menopause, but we're having her on as an expert for a Q&A. So I wanted to let you know, and if you wanted to check out her course and maybe just join the Zoom call, because I know that menopause is the thing in your life right now.
Yeah. What time is it?
Let's see. So it's on a Wednesday evening. Let me look at the events. If I can get it to pull up on my phone. Let's see. November the 6th. It's 6 p.m. Central Time.
Oh, I'll be
it'll
at work.
be next Wednesday.
Okay. And it'll be available to watch on a replay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this coming Wednesday, we have Dr. Lisa Wiedemann.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And we have Ronnie Campbell on Thursday, who's going to be on a Zoom call. Ronnie Campbell has been on Carrie's channel a lot. She beat stage 4 cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so we've got some interesting. We've got Dave Mack coming up too on the 7th of November. We've got Lee Copus coming in. We got a whole bunch of people coming in. So
it'll be nice to see somebody interview Dave Mack.
Yeah.
Right.
Usually he's just being quiet. He does it very well.
Exactly.
He makes me really appreciate that style of interviewing too. I think so many times, like I've interviewed people or I've been interviewed, and it was just so distracting because the other person keeps like they're not really adding anything, or maybe they're adding too much. But like instead of just letting the person talk that you're interviewing, people will be like, yeah, 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 oh yeah,
and that's
like
I have a tendency to
so
do
when
that.
I listen to it back, I'm like, that's all I'm hearing. Shut up.
That's me. I have a tendency to do that. So yes, I appreciate because I just naturally engage.
I've not noticed that from you, but I have noticed it from some others, and I won't say
maybe it's not excessive then. But I feel like I have to tone it down. I have to tone it down because I have a tendency to do that.
Like yeah. I'm not an expert interviewer by any means, but I love Dave's interviewing style because he just
it's communication though. Like what I always learned from communication is that you look at people, you nod, you acknowledge what they're saying. I took a communications course in college, right?
I think nodding is good, but when we verbalize yes, yeah, okay, sure. What I hate is the sures. Oh my gosh, I hate the sures. But like people will just do that, and it almost feels like they're rushing the person. It may not be intentional. It's probably just like you said, they're just like trying to.
I nod a lot, but it's because I'm paying attention and I want the person to know that I'm listening.
Right. Yeah, the nodding. I think the nodding's fine. Dave does a lot of nodding.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll do like this. He'll do little nodding and then aggressive nodding, and I think the nodding's fine. It's just like the little interjection of the words that don't add anything at all.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how things go with this evening with Dr. Chafee, and he's a good interviewer.
Yeah, he is. He's also one that just kind of, asks the question and then sits back and lets you have the floor,
Yeah.
Yep.
So that'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I guess this is about it for the.
Yep, we gotta head out.
Yeah.
So have everyone join us on Thursdays for Keto Study Club. We're having fun with that, and we'll let you know what our plans are for after the New Year's with the book club.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.